Folks, welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson, and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Good to have you with us today, folks. We have a ton of great videos, and just like the headline says, you know you hate the media, but you do not hate them nearly enough as you should.
Oh my gosh. So the theme of this week's podcast, as this week was unfolding, and there's been a million things that have happened this week. 9-0 Supreme Court decision. We had the Trump just demolished Super Tuesday and Nikki Haley backing out. We had State of the Union, which was the most horrific speech I have ever seen in my life. Folks, they're lining us up for the camps on the right. Let's just put it that way. And all throughout the week, I was interacting with normie friends of mine, friends who just consume the mainstream media. And my dad's one of those where you go up to his house, he's got the CNN or the MSNBC, and these people live in a different reality than us because the media just lies and is full of propaganda for them. So we thought today we're going to pull out some of the best hits. And folks, if you don't hate the media enough today going into this, hopefully you hate them even more after we're done. What do you think, Todd?
Couldn't have said it better, Jason. And folks, this is our reminder every week. Please like and share this, and especially share it with those folks that think the government, if we just had the right people in there, would do better, that the media tries to get it right sometimes. Everyone needs to understand, no matter what your political affiliation, you are getting lied to intentionally, just like we see so many Biden policies right now happening intentionally. It is not an accident. They don't think they're trying to do the right thing, solving crime or closing the border. They are actively trying to ruin this country. The media is actively trying to get you to believe lies, and we hope to expose that today. So like I said, share this with folks that don't necessarily agree with you because they need that message more than ever.
Yeah, and before we get into it too, hey, Ted, I don't know about you. I'm sitting here enjoying my Split Rock coffee, splitrockcoffee.com. I don't suppose you have a promo code, do you, Ted?
You know, Jason, it just so happens, folks, if you go to splitrockcoffee.com today and use promo code TODD10, my name's on the panel there, TODD number 10. That's going to save you instantly. And folks, subscribe today so you never have to worry about going to the grocery store again. Just have that coffee sent right to your door. Get your favorite breakfast blend. That's my personal favorite. I don't know what you're drinking, Jason.
Oh, I like the dark roast.
Okay,
but
you're a dark roast guy.
Well, you know, the other day I drank medium roast, and most people don't know the lighter the roast, the more the caffeine. And I do the Wayne Dupree podcast during the week. I was on fire. I was like, "Rah!" And I'm like, I might need to lay off the medium roast. Just
some
saying.
Science. That's because they're roasting that caffeine right out of there, Jason.
Giddy up.
All right.
Hey, well,
Jason, we got to get to a clip right away. We got, folks, our engagement is hot today. Facebook surprisingly has not suppressed our title, You Don't Hate the Media Enough. We thought for sure, Jason and I were talking before the show, this isn't going anywhere, but thanks for sharing this. Thanks for liking this. Let's get to the clips because that's what the people are here for, Jason.
Giddy up. What's the first one we're firing up?
For people that have known Joe Biden, I've known him a long time. The Brzezinskis have known him for like 50 years. This is the best Joe Biden.
Spicy Joe.
Like this
Spicy Joe.
Well, yeah, but also this is Joe Biden who has gotten in trouble for talking too much, for saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, for telling one too many jokes, for getting angry one too many times, for exaggerating. Like this is a Joe Biden that, and as an old man myself, that after a while you get the rough edges do get rounded off by age. So we don't have to talk about grandparents and parents. We can just talk about Joe Biden past, Joe Biden now. And I can tell you, I've talked to Joe Biden in private for decades.
Folks, this is why you don't hate the media enough. Every single word Joe Scarborough just said on his MSNBC show was a complete lie. He is gaslighting you. Jason, this is the question I have, then we'll break down the video. Do they believe these lies? Do you think Joe actually believes this?
You know, I swear some of these people in the media, you can tell are just doing it for the money because they get fired. Like Chris Cuomo, he got fired and then he left. And then he's actually like talking about some kind of real stuff. And some of these people have a different worldview. Guys like Joe Scarborough are so convincing. I don't know if he believes his BS or if he if he's just a really convincing actor. What do you think?
I think they believe it. That's my gut. I don't know how you could go on TV every day like this, knowing you're lying, but playing it so convincingly. I think he's just he's TDS through and through. I think he's convinced this point that Trump is literally going to be a dictator, ruin democracy, and he is so blinded to the fact that the other side is what is killing democracy right now. But folks, did you catch where he said this is the best Joe Biden we've ever had? The best.
Yeah. And this is on the heels of the State of the Union, which if you watched the State of the Union last night, it was funny. I didn't know exactly who he was streaming or who he was going for. He reminded me of Grandpa Simpson from The Simpsons, only angrier. And he also reminded me of my father-in-law who passed away last year. He was in memory care. My wife and I would visit him 3 times a week in the memory care unit. And it would be just this old, confused man who had pooped himself, who would sit around with all these other old, confused men who had forgot what they were talking about and just weren't all there. And after watching that performance for Joe Scarborough to talk about the best he's ever had, it is insane. But now here's why, because Earl's got a great question. Why are you watching a traitor why waste time watching a traitor to our country? Here's the reason, Earl. Half the country watches this garbage and believes it. They see Joe Scarborough talk like this, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is the best Joe Biden ever. That's why we do this podcast. We call it Freedom from the Press, because we want to bring truth to the people. And on today, we're going to be diving down leftist media propaganda, because your neighbor who supports Joe Biden, who's probably a nice enough guy, you have him over at his barbecue, you know his wife. I'm not talking the crazy blue-haired cat ladies. I'm talking a normal Democrat. They sit there. This is the only news they consume, and they believe this crap.
And Jason, to your point, Earl, great question. Thanks for following along today. Thanks for the comment. When you have conversations with your Democrat voting family or friends, this is why you can never break through to them. This is why when you say the most common sense thing, you say, isn't it weird that we send money overseas to protect other borders, but not our own? And you think, that's a pretty logical question to answer. And the answer seems pretty simple, is that they hate you. This is why those folks look at you with a blank face and they say, are you a MAGA supporting, they can't comprehend the question because they have been so brainwashed and just so destroyed by content like this. So you need to understand when you're talking to them, this is why you never seem to get a point across, even though it makes the most sense in the world.
Right. And that's why, folks, we apologize in advance, because we're going to go down some deep media debunking rabbit holes. But like I say, it's important for everybody to understand so that you can see that's how we're going to wake up this other half of the country. Like the MAGA wing of the Republican Party, we're awake. The media's corrupt. The government's corrupt. We understand it. The left doesn't understand it, because they're being lied to by this mainstream media that's just trying to destroy the country.
And I just want to hit on one more point, and then I want to get to a comment, Jason. After he talked about this being the best Biden ever, he said the reason we don't like Biden is because he occasionally misspeaks or he says the wrong thing at the wrong time. Folks, you know it. We know it. That's not why we dislike Joe Biden. We hate that he is ruining this country on purpose, and we hate that he stands up in Congress last night and just yells constantly, hating half of this country, creating all this unnecessary division. All of his policies have made this country a worse place. That's why nobody wants Joe Biden back that has a thinking brain at this point. It's not because we're concerned about, him getting smooth over the years and not so rough around the edges and just misspeaking sometimes. They completely miss the point. And again, it goes back to the question, are they missing the point on purpose, or are they just trying to brainwash the viewers there? So we'll let you guys figure out that question. But Jason, we have Aaron De La Garza, who, Aaron, thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting below here. But what about, that's not an argument when you say F Trump. We'd love to get your feedback here. What are we saying that's wrong so far? What about Joe Scarborough's rant just now makes sense to you? We'd love to see your thoughts below here. You can't just say F Trump and then disappear on us, man. Let us know if you agree with Joe Scarborough and why, and then what we're saying that is actually wrong. I don't want your opinion. I don't want your feelings. I want some facts. Why are we wrong? Why is Joe right?
Right. Hey, we got Darwin turned in too. I wonder if Darwin's on the road. He's one of our trucker friends. We love Darwin.
Darwin, thanks for joining us again. What was he in Indiana last week? Where are you at, Darwin?
Yeah. Well, and here's what I'll say too about Joe Biden. I've hated Joe Biden for decades. Joe Biden is the epitome of a swamp creature. Joe Biden ran for president in the 80s. He didn't win because he lied. He plagiarized. He is the consummate politician. The man had no skills in life. He got into politics. He got rich off of it. He traded political influence early in his career with credit card companies to make money. He's an adjunct professor. The guy's ridiculous. So this, I don't like Joe Biden, is not a new phenomena. I think 80-90% of the politicians in Washington, including Republicans, Lindsey Graham is just as corrupt as Senator Joe Biden was. Let's make no mistake about it. But they get away with it because the media lets them get away with it. It is ridiculous.
Jason, I have so much to say, and we have so many videos.
Let's go to the next one.
Let's do it. Then I'll get my comments back in here. Here's another Joe, folks, in case you didn't get enough already.
I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, I don't know if people know this or not. Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
He said it again. Folks, this is a different clip. He went back to the same best Biden ever, intellectually, analytically. I don't know what that means. Jason, it'd be interesting to ask Joe about Biden's previous positions on someone being able to work at a 7-Eleven, as he said, running in 2008, early 90s, saying we needed to put more people in prison, and we all know who that affected the most, talking about not wanting to bus kids in different areas. I guess we'll just gloss over those.
And folks, let's put on our critical thinking skills. We all know people. Todd, you know people, right?
I know a few people.
Yeah, a bunch of people in the audience know people, which, by the way, the chat is hopping today, folks. Love the engagement on there on the platforms. That's super fun. But do you know a single human being that you would ever say they're the sharpest they've been at 81 years old? Do you know a single one? And I mean, I'll even say President Trump at, I think he's 77 or something. He's not as sharp as he was. Like, he's lost a little pep off the fastball. And I'm not ashamed to say that. And I'm going to vote for President Trump. I will crawl over broken glass to vote for President Trump. But are you kidding me? You're going to try to tell us, now, folks, listen to this. I'm telling you the truth. The 81-year-old guy who poops himself, it is the sharpest version he's ever had. You have to be a window licker to think that's true.
All right. And I do want to make this point, Jason, since we're talking about senility, perhaps Parkinson's or whatever. Honestly, Jason, here's my thing. It does not matter that Joe Biden is senile and old. We can mock it. We can make fun of it. We can call it out. But folks, at the end of the day, if you think this is the game plan too, Jason, this is why I don't think Joe Biden will be the nominee in November, because they're going to play this up now. Joe will forget all about saying this. In a couple months, he'll say like, yeah, Joe Biden's too old. He's got to go. And no one will ever call him out on that in the left-wing media. They're going to get a new person that says, look how young and fit they are. So let's say they go with Big Mike or Gavin Newsom, and this person can speak a little bit better, present themselves a little bit better. That's suddenly going to make Democrat voters think like, yes, Joe Biden was the wrong Democrat. I need a different Democrat. Folks, at the end of the day, all these lunatic Dems are the exact same person. They have the exact same values. They will do the exact same things to ruin this country. They hold the exact same policy positions. Joe Biden being senile is fun to mock, but at the end of the day, that's not the issue. The issue is that he is a Democrat, period. All the Democrats now in that party are all corrupt. They all believe the same things. They all hate you. And so, yes, let's make fun of it. But no, changing the Democrat candidate, if you are even considering it, because, okay, well, it's not Biden now, it's someone cognizant, does not matter.
You know, I got to say, too, just to take a sec on the comments, Faley, Gene Coven, Lindsey Graham, Two-Face Rhino, you are 100% correct. No, F you, Joe, you're a total beep, and we know it.
I'm trying to read
Smith, Evelyn Smith, the guy on NBC, must be on some strong drugs. Which, by the way, what kind of drugs was Joe Biden on last night? Like that dude's eyes, like he blinked, he barely blinked. And then I don't know how to pronounce first name Levy. Love Trump, so do we. That's why we're voting for President Trump.
However you say your name, spot on, my man.
Yeah, we won't try to butcher it.
All right, Jason, we have so many clips here.
Let's keep going. This is fun.
Now, you should have said undocumented, but that's not a big thing, okay? What's the big thing about it?
No, I actually wasn't even going to ask about that. I was just going to ask more about the moment. But you do think that he should have said undocumented? That wasn't going to be my question.
Well, we usually say undocumented. He said.
Okay, folks, so it looks like CNN's clip cut it a little short. Joe Biden in the State of the Union last night talking about illegal immigrants, and not that they're committing crime, not that they are harming Americans throughout the country. We have a story from Denver, too, where they're asking you to take in, if you're a landlord, illegals into your unoccupied buildings here. They are literally trying to take away your private property, your safety, your security. And Nancy Pelosi's issue with all of this is that Joe Biden used the wrong language. He didn't call them undocumented or newcomers in his speech, Jason.
Yeah, and in particular, they were talking about Laken Riley, and they were trying to get him to say her name, and he called her Lincoln Riley, which is not the same person. And then he didn't take any ownership for the border crisis. And this story is tragic. I mean, it turns out the guy's from Venezuela. His brother's a known gang member, and he assaulted and killed this beautiful young girl. And I mean, just tragic. And we've seen this week about 10 or 12 stories come out like that aren't covered on the mainstream news, but it made it onto the State of the Union. Joe Biden finally said her name wrong, and Nancy Pelosi gets on TV, and she's surprised that she's mad that we're not being nice enough, and he called them an illegal immigrant instead of an undocumented or something. It is insane.
All right, folks. After every video, we might have to say this just to hammer the point home, and especially if you shared this with your Democrat voting friend or family member, we need to impress upon you, this is the way the media is covering the State of the Union. This is the way they're covering that horrific murder of Laken Riley. The media hates you so much. They want you to focus on language like newcomer and undocumented instead of the actual issue of Americans getting killed every day by these folks.
Yeah, and just to hop on a comment, George Boer, I apologize. I'm terrible.
We don't do names on this show, apparently.
Yeah. I can't believe people would vote for Biden after what he's done to this country. What is wrong with Democrats? George, that is the theme of this week's show. This week's show is us showing you your Democrat friends, your neighbor across the street who is a Democrat, who might be a decent enough guy. He watched this garbage and he believes it because this is the only place he gets his media from. That's why the theme of this week's article, you don't hate the media enough because he's brainwashing these poor Democrats. What's really scary, too, is they think you're the crazy one. And it's like, no, illegals should not be in the country. 100%.
Yeah, and just on that point, too, Jason, they might have watched the State of the Union. If you watched Joe Biden's speech last night and your takeaway was not that this was the worst speech ever, Joe Biden was so angry, so hateful. If that is not your conclusion from the speech, I think you need to go see your doctor. There's no other way to put it. Yeah, to that question, how do you vote Democrat? How do you? How do you watch this administration, watch his speech? And Jason, the delivery was awful, but someone wrote that. It was intended to be that way. However he delivered it, he could have whispered the entire time, said the exact same words. The message is still the same. He hates us.
Right. All right, let's go on to the next. This is, folks, we're fired up. I hope you're as fired up as we are today.
Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was...
Okay, I just got to pause it there. Did you see Kamala's reaction over his shoulder there when he mispronounced it? Just, God, Joe. But Jason, the other thing we talk about rhinos, Mike Johnson last night, folks, if you watch this, he is nodding his head in agreement with Biden most of the night. Even his response here, you can see he's upset at MTG for calling him out, not that Joe Biden refused to say her name. They are swamp rats through and through out there.
Yeah, and this was actually what we'll finish the clip. This
Yep.
is what Nancy Pelosi was reacting to. And if you notice, Joe Biden looked confused. And I mean, if you've had a loved one in memory care, you know that look like, what the heck is going on?
Killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals?
Okay, folks, you don't hate Joe Biden enough either. How many people are getting killed by legals? There's been a lot of conversations online. Did he mean to say legal immigrants? Does he simply mean American citizens that are legal in his sense? Like, yes, there are more crimes committed by American citizens because there are so much more of us in this country than illegals. That is not the point at all. The point is there should be zero murders at the hand of illegal immigrants because they shouldn't be here.
Say that again, Todd. Why should there be no murders by illegal immigrants?
Folks, take out your pen and paper. There should be no crimes committed by illegal immigrants because they should not be here in the first place. Laken Riley should be with her family today going to college because her killer should still be in a Venezuelan prison. He should not be in this country.
Absolutely.
Oh, Jason, let's hop on to Linda really fast here. Please make this shareable. Folks, there is an icon on your Facebook page, or if you're watching us on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, you can share this wherever you are. Just click that icon, send this out to your network, friends, family. If you want to get the link, you can click on the link as well. Send that through email, text message. You can get us all over the place here.
Yeah, we love it. Let's move on.
To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand.
I want to say words, Jason, that you cannot say right now on big tech. Joe Biden, whenever he tries to play the empathy card, talks about Beau Biden. It is disgusting.
Yeah, and Beau Biden died 25 different ways, and it's always the same way whoever he's talking to lost somebody.
Does that make you feel, if you're Laken Riley's parents and you say, oh, Joe, you lost Beau Biden to cancer, that is totally the same thing. I am at ease now. I am at peace.
Right. Oh, and Theodore hit the nail on the head. I got the feeling from Biden's words that victims of illegal viewed him as collateral damage. That's exactly it. I mean, he should be enraged and he should be embarrassed. He should be locked up in Gitmo because he's letting all these illegals in. And like Todd said, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here to kill anybody. We shouldn't. Venezuela has had their crime rate drop in the last 15 months by double digits. And it turns out they emptied their prisons. They sent their gang members to America. And then a news report came out last week. They're refusing us sending them back on flights. So Venezuela empties their prison, sends them to America. We go to send them back. And they say, no, senor, you can't let them in. And our president is letting this happen.
Which gives credence to the theory that our border is open because it is run by the cartels. You wonder how much influence they have in Washington, D.C. Because, Jason, we all know the solution is simple. Wall, military, flights home. That is it. You could finish this up tomorrow, but none of that is happening. And if Joe Biden can't even send a plane to Venezuela, what do they have over him? And what organizations have sway over us?
Absolutely.
All right, folks, we got so many more videos here. Number 4.
Oh, my God, we're fired up.
To start with the news today with you, Director Brennan, that some version of our intelligence analysis will, there's a plan for Trump to start getting that while he's under criminal.
Sorry, Jason, I just have a snarky comment. What is with these like liberal women? I think of like Amy Klobuchar from our state, who she talks and shakes the whole time. Like, what is up with this lady too? Like, just say it. But anyways, let's actually get to the meat of the conversation.
Right. Well, liberal women just tend to be the ugliest, weirdest women I've ever seen. But and this clip, I don't know how this isn't front page news and how these guys aren't being called up for treason.
All right, but folks, take a listen for yourself.
Prosecution for mishandling classified documents. Will you explain what this is and what you think is likely to happen?
And Nicole, it's somewhat surreal that an individual who is under indictment for mishandling classified information is going to be getting classified intelligence briefings. But this traditionally is provided to the candidates for president by the sitting president. And so therefore, I think it makes sense for the Biden administration to offer that to Donald Trump. Now, I'm pretty certain that.
All right, I got to pause it here, folks. He's going to talk for a little bit longer, and we will get to that. Just remember, we did an entire show on this with photographic evidence. If they are worried about classified information going to Donald Trump because he mishandled it, because it was in Mar-a-Lago, just remember that Joe Biden had classified documents all over the country. He had them at UPenn. He had them in his Delaware home. Remember, nothing ever happened to him because they didn't want to prosecute on the grounds of he was not mentally there. Just remember that part.
Yeah, and if you don't know that whole story, folks, we got a lot of new viewers today. Our previous episode, we talked about how they didn't charge Joe Biden, and we actually went through the court documents, read excerpts from it, but they said he's a kindly old man with a bad memory, and so they didn't think the charges would stick. But all the stuff they're accusing Trump of doing, Joe Biden has been proven in the documents released from the investigation to have done, and they didn't charge him.
Ukraine money, China money. You think they're just happy? Do you think they're just sending Biden money for nothing? Wake up, folks.
That my former intelligence colleagues will provide briefings that are not going to do any type of damage to sources and methods in terms of providing information to Donald Trump that he could misuse. But they will provide analytic overviews and briefings about some of the world's hotspots. Letting Donald Trump know what the assessments are at this point. So I think it's going to be analysis that will be devoid of the sources and methods, the sensitive things that we are most concerned about, the types of things that were in all those documents that he had in the bathroom and other areas in Mar-a-Lago. But I do think it makes sense. Now, it's a question about whether or not Donald Trump will accept the briefings. And I'm sure that if he does accept them, he probably will disparage them, as he has disparaged U.S. intelligence officers as well as U.S. intelligence itself for so long over.
And rightfully so, Jason. Do you remember a little nugget called WMDs?
Right.
I'm sure our intelligence community has never made a mistake beyond that one. They certainly didn't sit on Russia information in 2016, fabricate that out of thin air. Yeah, totally believable. So this is why we love Donald Trump, because he doesn't trust the intelligence community. Folks, they have done everything wrong. You could suggest that they are even running these media programs. So yes, do not trust the intelligence communities. But there's so much more to this too, Jason.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's what's remarkable. You have the intelligence community who is supposed to provide intelligence briefing to the major party candidates. So like Biden was getting these when he was running for president. And you have the intelligence community saying they are going to censor what they give to President Trump. Like, that should be front page news. Everybody participating in that should be immediately relieved of duty and locked up. But these guys are sitting there acting like it's no big deal. And your media, who should be losing their mind, like, what do you mean you're withholding information? And instead, they're nodding along like lemmings, like, yeah, makes perfect sense. And then your Democrat friend who's watching this on the news sees that and goes, yeah, that makes sense. Like, they should withhold that from Donald Trump. It is ridiculous. He belongs in Gitmo.
Remember, he was one of the signatories with the 51 intelligence officers that said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. And he's on television telling you that Donald Trump is the one that's going to abuse intelligence. Folks, you do not hate these people enough. That is the message of the show. That if you take nothing away from this show, just know that the media hates you and you do not hate them nearly as much as you should. Brennan belongs in prison for everything that he's lied about here. And again, folks, when you wonder why you can't get through to that lefty friend or family member of yours, they are convinced that even though every Trump hoax has been debunked, every single thing they've basically said about Trump has turned out to be false, just given enough time. They are lying about this latest one as well, but it gets everyone riled up. They think, oh, Donald Trump, he's not safe with classified secrets. He's such a threat to American security. Folks, every single day there's a threat to American security because Joe Biden is in the White House and every other major country on earth has leverage over him.
And, you know, you made an excellent point, Todd. This is election interference because he is trying to portray that President Trump is untrustworthy. So not only is he admitting to on camera to not giving Trump all the information he's entitled to, but he's also telling all the viewers of this leftist garbage that they're justified in doing that because Donald Trump can't be trusted. So you've got significant members of the intelligence community that are essentially committing election fraud. They're interfering in the election because they're saying you can't trust Trump with these secrets. That is the definition of a rigged election.
And he wonders why Donald Trump does not trust the intelligence community. Folks, they are so stupid. They're just so stupid.
Right.
All right, Jason, moving on to another clip. What do we got here? Oh, we got Fani Willis, folks. Buckle up.
Oh, yeah.
Stan, your testimony is you never took a trip to D.C. with Mr. Wade.
That's correct.
Personal or business?
That's correct.
Were you ever in D.C. at the same time as Mr. Wade?
I was not.
Personal or business?
No, me and Mr. Wade have not been to D.C. at the same time. However, since Mr. Wade has been on this case, he's been to D.C. Since Mr. Wade has been on to this case, I've been to D.C. What has not happened is we have not been in the District of Columbia at the same time. Now, the only thing I'm not sure about with what you asked me is if I've been to D.C. personally, because I got a lot of personal friends in that area. Oh, yeah. But I know that I have been to D.C. I did an interview at Howard University. I went to D.C. for that. Seems like I've been to D.C. one other time. Oh, I went to D.C. for the Global Summit. Actually, yeah, those were two separate trips.
My next question is based on her opening the door, and therefore I'll just ask it, and Your Honor can decide whether or not it's appropriate. When you went to D.C., did you go to the White House?
I did not go to the White House.
No. Well.
Uh-oh.
So for those who don't know, Fani Willis, who is prosecuting President Donald John Trump in Georgia, has been called in for ethics violations. And this was from the hearing last week where Fani Willis was testifying. So what's going on is Fani Willis, who ran under the umbrella of I'm going to get President Trump. That was her campaign. She had a boyfriend who happened to be married at the time, who she started having an affair with. And then when it came time to hire the guy to go after Trump, she hired this lawyer friend of hers, Nathan Wade, and paid him double or triple what other more qualified lawyers would do. And then it gets even worse because they were taking trips together that Nathan was billing Georgia or Fulton County for. And him and Fani were going on cruises. They went on like 6 cruises in the fall. So this is the clip of Fani Wade saying, yeah, no, we didn't do that. And we have the second clip too, Dodd, don't we?
Let's take a look. I don't think we have another Fani here.
No, but it was the response to them. I might not have tagged that one.
Yeah, I don't think we have that, folks. But bottom line, complete perjury here. There is now evidence that they have logs in the White House. Folks, when you visit the White House, you sign in. They have complete evidence of that. There's other evidence that's come out as well about when their relationship began. She lied about that. Friends are now, there's more people every day. We just did an article at theamericantribune.com. Someone else is willing now to testify against Fani Willis and say, actually, I knew about this relationship. She said it didn't start until what, Jason, 2019, 2020, or not until a certain time after her election, after she started going after Trump. And the timeline keeps getting moved backwards. But folks, have you heard anything, a peep from the media about this completely dishonest, perjuring woman about her just insane attempt to go after Donald Trump when it turns out she is the corrupt one?
Right. And like I say, we call this freedom from the press. We say you don't hate the media enough. I actually watched this hearing, and then there was a Georgia Senate hearing that was on this week that they brought the lawyers from the defendant side, not the Fani side, to present their evidence. They've got credit card statements that show, yeah, it turns out you guys were in DC at the same time. There was like 2,000 text messages between her and them in the time when they said they weren't dating. I don't know about you, Todd, but I ain't texting nobody 2,000 times other than my wife.
Well, and Donald Trump said it best. He's up there giving a speech after this information comes out. He says, I love Melania, but I'm not calling or texting her 2,000, 3,500 times. And there's only one reason they're doing that, because he's really good at what he does. And Donald Trump, just the perfect delivery, the perfect endpoint to that comment there, and the crowd went nuts. But there is only one reason they were communicating. It's because we're traveling together, folks. Just an illegal, corrupt system, having a good time, but using your tax dollars and just lying about it the whole way.
Yeah, and it's ironic because all what she's prosecuting is essentially what she's doing, which is bilking the government.
Just like Letitia James. We'll have to do a breakdown of her too, but more information comes about it. Letitia up in New York went after Donald Trump for his illegal business stuff. Turns out she's not on the up and up either with campaign funds.
Oh yeah. It turns out she's got her own things. But folks, sticking with the theme of the story, you don't hate the media enough, because if you don't turn in to podcasts like this, you didn't know that Fani Willis testified to that. If you didn't read on our website, theamericantribune.com, we had several articles on this where we linked to the videos, and she is lying through her teeth. She should be disbarred. Now, ironically, here's for those that are paying attention to this stuff. The judge who's overseeing, who's going to be making the decision on what should happen with her, he used to work for Fani in her office, and he actually donated to her district attorney campaign.
Can't make it up.
No corruption there, folks.
All right. Well, we are switching gears here. So the Supreme Court in a 9-0 decision, folks. I'm sure you saw this as well, though. Colorado leftist judges completely overstepped their bounds. They don't get to make up election things. The federal government has some authority to that. Supreme Court, even with the 3 woke lunatics that sit on the bench with them, all ruled in favor of Donald Trump. You wouldn't know it was 9-0, though, Jason, if you watch certain media outlets.
Right.
I understand your testimony is you never took a trip to D.C. with Mr. Wade.
That's correct.
Personal or business?
The wrong one.
That's correct.
Were you ever in D.C. at the same time as Mr.
With a concurring dissent.
The court appears to the naked eye to be deciding something 9-0. But when you peel back the appearances, it's really a 5-4 decision.
The big news out of the Supreme Court's Colorado decision.
I think we got to play that one again.
Dissent.
The court appears to the naked eye to be deciding something 9-0. But when you peel back the appearances, it's really a 5-4 decision.
All right, we will get to his rationale in a second. But folks, you don't hate the media enough. It was 9-0. You saw that it was 9-0. They all decided. They all said that there is a constitution. And Jason, when you have people like Sonia Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson adhering to the Constitution because it is that obvious, you know you have a slam dunk case. But apparently, if you're a Harvard law professor like this moron, and folks, side note, don't send your kids to these Ivy League institutions. It is name only. If you want them to network, maybe, but this is the type of person teaching at Harvard these days. All these institutions, you think that they're a glorious place to go and get better learning done? Nope, not at all.
Well, and let's just give a little color on the Supreme Court decision. So Colorado kicked Trump off the ballot. Supreme Court came out and made a decision. Now, before I consume any news on a decision like that, I go read the decision. By the way, if you just Google Supreme Court, you can see the actual document. It's 20 pages. 20 pages total. They go through why they agreed on the decision. So, and it was 9-0. Only about 20% of cases are 9-0. And usually when there's a 9-0, even the ones that voted for it will say something along the lines of, we voted for it, but I can see the point what the other side made. It just is like they kind of justified the argument. In this one, there was none of that. The 3 liberals, so in the majority opinion, which is about 14 pages, they said Trump can't be removed from the ballot from a state, end of discussion. Then they did define out some hypotheticals for how they could legislate if they wanted to in the House and Senate to pass laws to deal with this. The 3 liberals came out and said, we agree with the decision, but the prescription they have for the legislature, we don't know if we like that. And Amy Coney Barrett said, let's just stick with Trump should be on the ballot and leave the rest of it out. So there was no dissent in the Trump should be left off the ballot. There was only dissent on, if you guys ever do want to try to remove somebody from the ballot, here's some different thoughts on what that could look like. That was the only dissent. So this was 9-0. There was no judge on the Supreme Court gave any indication that the Colorado people were anything but lunatics.
And we'll get to the rest of the clip. But folks, and we ask this a lot, if you have that Democrat voting, Biden supporting neighbor, family member, friend, just ask them if it is Democratic to ruin democracy, in this case, removing Donald Trump from the ballot, to save democracy. Ask them how that works, because I don't understand it. Ask them and then bring it back to us and let us know. But let's continue on here.
The big news out of the Supreme Court's Colorado decision wasn't so much that all 9 justices ruled to keep Donald Trump on the ballot, which was expected, but that 4 justices, including Amy Coney Barrett, said the majority had gone too far.
I think it really doesn't sound quite right to say that this was unanimous when the court was so fractured over why exactly Trump should remain on the ballot.
I do want to point up the divisions. It's 5-4. This is a 5-4 ruling on part of it.
It was a 5-4 ruling when it came to the particulars of this case.
There is a split, 5-4, over whether the court should have brought Congress into the ruling. Help us understand the importance of this split.
The split is significant.
The 3 liberals in the court, it reads like a dissent.
The big sort of 5-4 split.
There's this amazing split in this particular decision.
The concurrences, which read like dissents.
It reads like a dissent.
What felt like more of a dissent, honestly, than a concurrence.
I think this was nominally a concurrence, but it had real big D energy, big dissent energy.
And it's 5-4, and notably the men versus the women, which is just a remarkable split.
I think it is encouraging that you had the 4 women basically saying, show restraint here.
I also think it's not an accident that it's the women who are taking the position that this is really a question of institutional integrity.
The 3 liberals' separate opinion was actually styled as a concurrence, but I looked at the metadata in the decision, and it was originally styled as a dissent.
And it seemed that the way that the decision was originally put out, it was put out like a dissent, but that they put it out as a concurrence.
Always read the dissent. That is my shorthand summary, and always watch what the court is doing.
Concurrence, it's a concurrence.
The concurrence, yeah.
It purports to be a concurrence in this case, so you got to read it all.
You got to read it all.
That is one of the greatest clips I've ever seen of the media, folks. If there was one video to go along with our headline, it is this right here.
Yeah, folks, just to make it clear, it was 9-0. There was no dissent. It was completely an ass kicking that the Colorado got. All the judges, even the liberals, are like, y'all are crazy. Now, and like I say, they did have concurring opinions that said, well, this is maybe how the Congress should address it. But nobody thought President Trump should be off the ballot. But your liberal neighbor saw this garbage and thinks either, oh, the Supreme Court's corrupt or it wasn't really 9-0, which couldn't be further from the truth.
I'm hesitating to go down this path. It's interesting how they focused on the 4 women who wanted to do things a little bit differently. Folks, they just hate you so much. They want to divide you along racial lines, on gender line, I should say sex lines, whenever they can just wedge in there. My wife and I get along fine. There are differences between us as male and female. But now here's the mainstream, here's corporate media saying that no, women are doing something extra special on the Supreme Court, just to make you always have to think about those differences when you really don't have to. There are Americans, there are individuals. Stop with this classification based on this collective identity, but they just sneak it in there every chance they get.
Yeah, and I got to say, for anybody that wants to fact check, just go on the Supreme Court website. Just read it. Like these Supreme Court decisions, it'll take you 20 minutes. They read really fast. And you will see there is no mention anywhere where anybody doesn't 100% wholeheartedly agree that Trump shouldn't be removed from the ballot. Unbelievable. Where do we go next, Todd?
I guess we keep doing this. So, folks, I think the number one issue in November is going to be the border right now. You can see Democrats lying through their teeth about how, and I wish we had this clip here. KJP actually talking to Peter Doocy in the press room said that it's the Republicans' fault that Laken Riley got murdered. It's Republicans holding up the border bill, every other country's border except our bill. They are blaming the GOP now after 3 years of denying that it was a problem. First, it was not a problem, and now it is the Republicans' problem. And again, if you have a Democrat voting friend, my God, what is going through their itty bitty brain right now to be like, yeah, there's no problem at the border. And then they just switch gears as fast as the media tells them to. Oh, it's a big problem and it's the Republicans' fault. So go for it, Jason.
That's such a great point because they pull the switcheroo. We have been screaming about the border on the right, on podcasts like this for years. Joe Biden has let in 8 million people that are unvetted. And the border bill they came up with is hot garbage. And up until 90 days ago, they were saying the border's closed. There's no problem. There's no issue. Why do you keep complaining? The House passed a border resolution right after we took over the House. It's called HR 2. The legislation has been on the Senate. They won't even address it. But now they put together this horrible border bill that allows 2 million people in a year. And the media doesn't even talk about the House bill that was passed, doesn't cover the facts that are in the Senate bill that passed, but they just frame it up as either, why are you guys worried about the border? Or it's Republicans' fault because they won't pass the border bill.
And here's where they make you insane. And Jason, I think this is why leftists, if you look at any clinical data, people that lean left or vote Democrat have more mental health issues. And I don't like the term mental health to begin with, but I think it's appropriate here. They're just a little bit crazier because they live in a world of cognitive dissonance. So we just got done saying how the media is going out and blaming Republicans for the border crisis. And at the same time, the next two clips, folks, are talking heads on these state media outlets about how Republicans are just making up the border crisis. They are saying the exact opposite thing at the same time, and no one can ever sit through it and figure it out for themselves here. But again, you do not hate the media enough. Take a look at these clips about blaming white rural Americans for all these issues.
Republican voters don't vote that way. They don't vote based on economics or based on the benefits they're getting economically from the president. They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border, the idea that they can't get whatever job they want, a black.
Like I said, folks, the Biden administration is blaming Republicans right now for a very real border crisis, and they will admit it until they don't when Joy Reid comes on here and says that white people just hate brown people.
Black person.
Just go for it.
Got it. Therefore, drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus at this stage. It isn't about economics.
No.
You wanted to say something. I'll let you chime in.
Well, I was actually the comments are just great today where I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, Faylee Jean Colvin. With the stroke of a pen, Biden can reverse this whole mess without having to send more money to Ukraine or whoever. 100%. Joe Biden, first week in office, passed and reversed 92 executive orders about the border. And Joy Reid is trying to change the discussion to make it seem like you don't want black or brown people in the country. Folks, I don't know about you, but I could give two shits if you're a hardworking American, if you're black or brown or yellow or whatever damn color you are. I care that you're an American and that you want to make this country great, that you want to live peacefully and productively and do all the other things that we all want. And Joy Reid is convincing these numbskulls that are watching her show that, yeah, folks like us that want a border closed are doing it because we're racist. It is insulting.
Just remember, Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm a big fan, big fan. He says all the right things. Little mini Trump out there. I would love to see him as vice president. Notice that Joy Reid will never comment on that because, Jason, you and I, we're not blind. We see that he has a different name, different ethnicity than white, but we don't care. We care that he espouses small government conservative principles. That is all any of us care about, but they will lie through their teeth day in and day out and convince, again, mostly probably these small-minded white liberals, white women, white male Democrat voting fools think, oh yeah, it's those other white people that are the problem. They just make problems up. And like I said, the border is either a Republican issue or it is not an issue at all. And white folks like us are just making it up because we are racist and xenophobic. All right, but we got more clips, Jason.
Let's go.
Some of these exit polls, I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia.
That is such an absurd statement. They hate you. They are making fun of West Virginia for being a backwater country. And guess who lives there? It is Trump voting white Americans, because they are getting shafted with all this diversity and equity nonsense. They are forgotten about every single day. They hate you.
And let's just unpack what these guys are saying. These three women who probably own 35 cats between them, they are making the argument that people in Virginia shouldn't be worried about 8 million unvetted illegals coming into the country. And they are mocking you if you're concerned about that. We're from Minnesota. I'm concerned about the border. Like, I don't think it benefits us at all. I mean, it's what's happening in some of these cities where they're all landing in is just tragic. But if you care about that, they mock you. And then if you're somebody from West Virginia, who Todd and I would fit into West Virginia. I grew up poor in a trailer park in southern Minnesota. Like, those are my people in West Virginia. Clowns like this, they make fun of you. They hate you.
And Jason, I think they forgot about the Martha Vineyard episode where Ron DeSantis flew about 50 folks up there, and they lasted one day. All of those Biden voting idiots up in Martha's Vineyard said, our community can't support 50 individuals who are in this country illegally, so bust them back to Boston, send them somewhere else. Our little enclave, which has $1 million homes up and down the island coast, can't do it here. Let other fools, let regular Americans deal with it. It's that elitist, snobby, smuggish attitude. How do you support Democrats at this point? I'm just left asking the question, what on earth? Because Donald Trump bad? I think that's the only argument against it. This is a short clip. I'm going to start it over in its entirety, just so you can get the full flavor of this just complete lunacy.
Look at some of these exit polls. I mean, I live in Virginia. Immigration was the number one issue. I mean, again, these could change in Virginia.
Well, Virginia does have a border with West Virginia. Very, very contested area.
Build the wall. Like, what?
They are laughing at Laken Riley's parents right now. Immigration's not an issue. All these illegals, not a problem.
Todd, we've said it 100 times on this show. You don't hate the media enough.
All right. I think we got to do this one too. You don't hate Joe Biden enough either. And you don't hate the judicial double standard either. This happened at the State of the Union last night. Jason, I saw a lot of protests leading up to the event. It looked like some pro-Hamas fools were blocking the streets so that the Biden motorcade might have to go a different direction. Haven't heard much about that since, but I did see someone else go to jail last night. Take a look at this, folks. Waiting.
Safer today than when I took office. Year before I took office, murder rates went up 30%. 30% they went up. The biggest increase in history.
That was a Gold Star dad giving President Biden a reminder last night of an incident he would probably rather forget. The father of a U.S. Marine killed in the 2021 Kabul airport bombing was arrested for heckling the president during the State of the Union address. He was identified as Stephen Nikoyi. His son, Nicholas, was one of 13 U.S. service members and 170 civilians killed during the Bosch withdrawal from Afghanistan. And I also read this morning that I believe his other son then after committed suicide. So a grieving father, and hopefully that gets resolved quickly. And the president should, if anything, just make sure that he does not get charged. I think that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And guess what came out this morning, Todd?
Don't tell me.
He's being charged.
How did I know?
We have a Gold Star dad who's at the State of the Union who was screaming about the Afghanistan withdrawal. He gets hauled out in handcuffs. I'm old enough to remember when Nancy Pelosi was tearing up Trump's State of the Union speech and all the Democrats were screaming at Trump. a veteran who we lost in Afghanistan because of Joe Biden's awful policies, got hauled out of the State of the Union, handcuffed, and arrested.
Folks, there are no words. If you don't hate these people enough, there is not enough hate in the world for this administration and these media outlets that just go on and report it. They say, yeah, he was heckling Joe Biden. He probably deserves to get hauled away. We don't have clips of the morning coverage of that. I don't even know if they'll cover it because it makes Biden look bad because he's getting called out for a policy that they'd rather not address. Just despicable stuff on display, folks. I don't know. I'm at a loss for words almost. It is so infuriating and disheartening to see that your country is getting lost to this.
Right. Oh, how many more clips we got, Todd?
Oh, okay. Well, this will get us fired up again, Jason. Van Jones. I'm trying to remember. Was he the green czar under Obama? Is that how he got his start?
It's something like that.
Yeah, he's on CNN now, but take a look at these talking points.
And Van, what does President Biden need to do at this point to earn those Nikki Haley supporters, bring them into the fold? We saw the Biden campaign putting out a statement from President Biden almost immediately after Nikki Haley walked off that stage in South Carolina. What do you think?
I think he needs to talk to her donors and her supporters and say, if you want to, a year from now, watch Russian tanks rolling through Europe, then endorse Donald Trump and get on that bandwagon. But understand, you're going to wake up one morning and you're going to see horror across Europe, and you're going to have American soldiers, sailors having to go over there and do something that we could have done with dollars, we're going to have to do with blood. If you want to continue to see the country being divided and unable to govern itself and treat itself well, get on that Trump train. But you got a place over here. Now, he also, I think, needs to make a stronger case for what he is going to do to keep the economy moving in a good direction for people who go into grocery stores and can't pay for their groceries. He says he's going to sick the DOJ and the FTC on these grocers, these corporate grocers that are ripping off Americans. He needs to lean into that for the voters. But for the people like us who care about a democracy around the world, they have a binary choice. We're out of NATO and Russia is running over Europe, or you stand with Joe Biden.
I'm just going to let Deb speak first here. These stupid liberals care more about Europe than they care about their own country. Treasonous behavior.
Yeah, and so much to unpack there. First, President Obama and President Biden, that's when Russia advanced. They did not. Russia was completely non-aggressive during the Trump presidency, did not take a square inch of anybody else's soil. Second thing, when they talk about, at the end there, he's talking about Joe Biden's going to send the Department of Justice after private businesses because of their prices. Folks, the government does not belong in enforcing prices in America. Hard stop. The only exceptions are you can't have monopolies or things like that. I don't know about you, but there's 20 grocery stores within 10 minutes of my house. And the prices in those stores, they charge what they can charge because that's what they need to. And I'm not saying corporations aren't bad and don't try to make more money, but if anything, people should then be opening up other grocery stores to take all the business.
Yeah, and I'd love to, if we have a grocer, you own a grocery store, a small little mart somewhere, and you're watching us, my understanding is margins at these places are extremely tight. Whatever you are paying, if I own a grocery store, I might walk away with 5% profit after I have to pay to get it delivered to my store, to stock it. I got to pay all the employees. Like, you're barely making it by as an individual grocery store. And yeah, if you own a corporation, you got 1,000 stores, it adds up. I understand the economics of that. But each individual store is doing just enough to make a tiny little profit. And they got to deal with food waste all the time if you're selling fresh produce. Folks, it's not an easy game. Empty talking point here. But Jason, to his issue about Russia and Ukraine, why Ukraine? If we cared about democracy around the world, I can think of North Korea, for example. There is not a lot of freedom in North Korea. I have never heard anyone say we should send money to fight the awful, awful communist dictator in North Korea. We just leave those people alone. You could probably just throw a dart at a map of Africa. I would guess there are child laborers, child slaves, all sorts of other slavery that we don't want to think about or mention here. We don't seem too concerned about that. But when it comes to the democracy in Ukraine, why? Just why are we so concerned about them? And folks, I've never heard a good answer to that.
No, other than money laundering, and it's insane.
And does anyone really believe, and I did a video earlier today, Jason, we did a case study. We had 4 years of a Trump administration. If anybody really wanted to go out and aggress against the entire continent of Europe and start World War III, they had 4 years to make it happen. I have a short memory. I'm tired all the time because I have 2 kids. So help me remember, Jason, did any of that happen in 4 years under Donald Trump?
First president where there was no new war. And I'm going to call him Gene because I'm never going to get your first name right. Hits the nail on the head. Money.
Absolutely.
And it's sad. And they're convincing people like Vladimir Putin. Like, and we are not a Putin supporter. Like, I'm not a big Russia guy, but
we're allowed to ask questions. Again,
we're allowed to ask questions.
You're worried about democracy over the world, but you are only concerned about one specific democracy. And Jason, my understanding of democracy is people get to vote.
Right.
I don't think a lot of voting is happening in Ukraine. It seems to me like he's canceled 3 elections in a row due to the war efforts.
Yeah, turns out in Ukraine, their democracy, you don't need to. Yeah.
But the other point I want to make on this, Van Jones says he's fear-mongering, folks. Again, you don't hate the media enough. He said you have to vote for Democrats. Otherwise, there's going to be American boots on the ground under a Trump administration. American boys and women, now that they're in the military, are going to get killed. With no disregard for the loss of Ukrainian life. They are so glib about the fact that, I don't know what the number is. I'm just going to say it's in the millions at this point because I assume that's what it is between Ukrainian civilian casualties, military casualties. Russia's dealing with casualties. They do not care about the millions of lost lives, but vote for Joe Biden because at least it won't be an American life. They hate humanity so much.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I did get a correction. My name sounds like Sally, but with an F. Sounds all good, LOL. Fally, love it. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Should we end on a positive note, though, Todd?
We should. We have, folks, this is what I hope you've been sticking around for the whole show. We didn't really promise this, but we probably should have, Jason. I can't think of a better bookend than this last video we're going to show you.
Yeah, so let me frame this up. So for those who haven't gone on Donald Trump's campaign website, Donald Trump has what's called Agenda 47, which he lays out all of his policy positions. There's little videos about them. There's deeper in-depth. And the left has just found out about Donald Trump's agenda. And this is a video of a leftist, I think it's really literally a crazy blue-haired, if I remember right, that breaks down Agenda 47 and the horrors of it. So I want you to tune in. I know we're running a couple minutes long. Listen to this. It's like 2 minutes. And tell me what you think of Agenda 47.
The first 15 promises he has made if he is reelected. You may have heard of Project 2025, but this is from Agenda 47, and you can read all of these on his website. First, he promises that he will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in history. He will also ask for the death sentence for anyone convicted of human trafficking. He will close the Department of Education and return all education standards to the states to decide. He will put prayer back into school, and he will criminalize any race-based advantage programs. He will end the Affordable Care Act. He will ban gender-affirming care for adults and children, and he will ban any federal dollars from going towards gender-affirming care, which means anyone with government-provided health care will no longer be able to access gender-affirming care except for Viagra and Cialis. Those will still be available. He will propose a constitutional amendment that gives a term limit to Congress. He will deploy the Department of Justice to investigate the Biden crime family and any of his adversaries or political rivals. He will immediately pardon all of the January 6thers, and he will create a task force to investigate anyone who arrested, charged, or imprisoned a January 6er. He will increase the penalties for underage criminal offenders, strengthen immunity for police officers, and deploy the National Guard to patrol woke cities. On day one, he will reassess our participation in NATO and says that every European country needs to pay the United States for protection. He will also restore the wonderful travel ban for Muslims coming to America. He will build freedom cities. This is 10 new cities built on federal land. He will award them to areas with the best development proposals, and he will prioritize moving young families to these freedom cities. He will kill all e-vehicles and e-vehicle legislation, seeking to replace that with the development of a flying car. He believes that we could create a car that vertically takes off. He will remove all of the limits on American natural gas exports and drill baby drill for oil domestically. He will impose a tariff of up to 60% on Chinese imports. He will extend the 2017 tax cuts and drop the corporate tax rate from 21% to 15%. He will push Congress to pass legislation that would give every American the right to concealed carry anywhere at any time. And he will revoke any gun restrictions or legislation that seeks to inhibit people's ability to own guns that's been passed in the last several years. He will demand that Europe pay back all the money we gave Ukraine, and then he will use all of that money to recruit for the American military. And he will take billions and billions of dollars from private university endowments by taxing, fining, and suing the universities. He specifically names Harvard in this one. And then he will use that money to create the American Academy. It is a free online college that will be free of wokeness that he will force employers to recognize as a bachelor's degree equivalent. So that's Agenda 47.
Folks, if this is not the best campaign for Donald Trump, I can't think of a better one.
Yeah, I gotta say, every single thing they went. So this is a leftist TikTok influencer who is horrified by these proposals, and every single one she reads, I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that's make your pay, like the college one. Joe Biden keeps forgiving student loans, but he's throwing it on the taxpayers. Why aren't the college paying for it? Because if the colleges were the one that gave you a crappy degree that you can't make no money on, why don't we take the money back from the college? You know, locking up pedophiles. Like
every single thing. I want this. We always say we want Donald Trump to be that boogeyman in leftist brain. I want that Trump version so bad. It's like that Vince McMahon meme, if you've seen it, Jason. It's like, oh, and he just
right.
I'm listening to this video like, yes.
So, folks, we ended with this video because we wanted to leave you on a high note, and we wanted to drill home. You don't hate the media enough, and they have brainwashed the other side. Because even any American on at least 70% of those proposals should have been like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's cool. EVs, like, they're going nowhere. Companies aren't making any money on them. It's not the future. Flying cars, don't know how much I like the flying car thing, but kind of cool if we want to, like, we spend so much stupid money, like, whatever. But 70-80% of Americans, as they listen to those policy proposals, should be like, oh, those are pretty solid. Those are pretty awesome.
And it's not even that partisan. Those are just good ideas. I don't know what there is to disagree with on there, but this woman encapsulates why you don't hate the media enough, because she's watching Joy Reid laugh off Laken Riley's family as their daughter gets murdered by an illegal. She is consuming all of this garbage about the SCOTUS decision being basically 5-4. This is what people turn into when they consume the media. So, Jason, we had that question at the start of the show. Why are you showing MSNBC and Joe Scarborough? Folks, this is why. This is the end product of that. And this is the result of your conversations going nowhere with anybody, because good luck getting through to this young woman's head. Oh, I hope I didn't misgender her. That she's a moron, because she is so, look at her. She's so smug and convinced that she's on the right side of all this. She is so far gone.
In the comments, let me know how many cats you think she owns. Why is it the crazy lefties always own like 20 cats? Hey, with that, folks, though, we shouldn't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for tuning in. Great comments in the chats. It's good to see. Todd and I are on here every Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Central. We're on multiple platforms. We're streaming on Facebook, on a few pages. We're also on YouTube, Rumble, and we do have Twitter pages. I'm at JRob from MN. And Todd, yours is goofy.
Oh, man, it's hard, folks. Tamtrib, if you're going to spell it phonetically, TAMTRIB. But I do have another request, Jason, since we're talking about social media. Folks, we are launching a YouTube channel. I know, Google YouTube. We're on Rumble as well. Go to Rumble first. But we could really use your help with subscribers to help our channel get monetized. So if you want to go to YouTube, search The American Tribune Breaking News. And it's also got the same handle, coincidentally, as my Twitter. It's the TAMTRIB, Tamtrib. But The American Tribune Breaking News at YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. It's free to you. You're only going to get notifications when good videos come out, but that's going to help our channel grow, get monetized, and support the work that we do.
Yeah, and if you want to look at some of our other work, we have theamericantribune.com. Those are kind of more of our lighter, newsy, breaking news stories. Then we have the www.theamericantribune.news. That's where we do our deeper dives, kind of the stuff we can't talk about on a lot of platforms. We got a lot of Epstein stuff. What was Will's this week? Oh, it's talking about Ukraine and how Ukraine interfered with the Trump election. And our
Yeah,
partner,
did you know that? Did you know that?
yeah,
Bill?
and our partner that writes on the site, he's actually in law school. So these are really well-sourced articles with links and citations.
He's not going on boomer rants like our podcast. He's actually writing real information for you.
Yeah, exactly. And if you read it and like, God, this sounds like a lawyer wrote it. Well, kind of they did.
Turns out.
So, but with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you have an amazing week. We'll see you back here next Friday. And if there's something you want us to dig into, drop us a note. We get a lot of communication, especially on Twitter inbox, where people will send notes about different things. So we love that. It helps keep us abreast of what's going on. And hopefully you learned a few things on this show. But remember, you don't hate the media enough.
Take away what you will from the rest, but you don't hate them enough. Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'll see you next Friday.